talk, like Zoma, feel free to chime in. We're gonna end though at 1:45, Lynn.
Okay, that sounds good. All
Thank
right,
you.
so you are live on YouTube right now. So turning this mic over to you, Susan, Michelle, and Gloria, and whomever else. The mic is all yours.
Hi, this is Susan Michel. I am here in Western Massachusetts. It is so great to be here as always. And I am here with my good friend and soul sister from New York, Glorian. How are you today, Glorian?
Wonderful. Really doing well. Thank you, Susan. Glad to be here with you.
Yes, yes. And anyone else who would like to share, please let us know. Raise your hand, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on any subjects we're talking about. Zoma, Dove, I see a few other people in the room. There's so much wisdom here to be shared. And like A Course in Miracles says, when more than one mind joins, our insight and our light and our knowledge just expands so much. I personally, I never get tired of listening to A Course in Miracles. I was listening to it again today on Audible. I've been studying it now for 35 years. I found it in my mid 20s, and I'm moving into the latter stages of my life. So it's been 35 years, and I still, when I listen to it, it's like I get aha moments, I get light bulbs. It is just the most beautiful piece of knowledge that I have ever come in contact with. I mean, A Course in Miracles tells us that it is not the only clear path to God, but it is one amazingly clear path to God, and it is my path. And my book is entitled, that I wrote, Surrender to Joy, From Suicide to Serenity. I teach the transformational truth of A Course in Miracles, which we're all here to study, to learn, to embody the knowledge of. And as A Course in Miracles says in the introduction, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. And what that means is the only thing that's real is the love. So when I am seeing the beauty in my brother, when I'm seeing the love in my brother, I am seeing clearly. When I am not, I am not sinning, but I am not seeing clearly, and I will not find peace, love, joy, and happiness. So A Course in Miracles is making it clear that we have two choices, love or fear. Love makes us happy, fear does not. There's no punishment, but when we extend God's love, we are happy. And God's will for me and for all of us is perfect happiness, because when I am connected with perfect happiness, I can be a conduit for God's divine miracles. That is what A Course in Miracles is teaching me to do. And my introduction starts out, my passion is God. God is love and joy and beauty. He is all that is good in the world. Everything else is our own miscreation. When we are filled with joy, we are connected to God. When we are not joyful, we have lost our connection to all that is real. This is my message. It can be clarified with three simple words: surrender to joy. There is nothing to find. All we need to do is surrender. There is nothing to find in the world, because there is no world. We are always creating our own experiences by the dominant thoughts in our mind. Right, Glorian?
Absolutely. And you're on fire for sure. And I totally agree with you. I've been doing this for 31 years and I'm just, redoing the lessons again this year. And it's just amazing the unfoldment of consciousness that's continuous. And that's because we're always meeting our own consciousness. And this course becomes like the living word, where the experience of what occurs, as you say, transformational experience occurs because of what we embrace beyond the words and beyond the thoughts that we're reading and doing. The Christ consciousness, this consciousness from the fourth dimension, reveals and imparts itself through us as we're willing and ready to open ourselves to it. So thanks so much, Susan.
Thank you, Gloria. And yeah, the course is very clear. It cannot teach us the meaning of love because love is who we are. What it can do, though, is it can help us to identify our blocks to love. So when the blocks to love come up, we can choose to release them. And when we are not blocking the truth of who we are in any way, that is just naturally what we do. It is in our essence, it is in our true nature to love our brother. So I will say, for myself, I continue to vacillate. When I side mistakenly with the darkness of the ego, I do my best to fully feel whatever pain point is in the process of surfacing. And I do believe that when we can acknowledge whatever is going on in our unconscious mind and release it and give it to God, I mean, God wants us to give him all of our unhealed wounds so he can help us to heal. I mean, I had a miraculous shift yesterday. I was triggered by something that happened again at the gym. Most of my triggers seem to happen at the gym since that's where I spend my mornings. And I just couldn't seem to get beyond it on my own. So I prayed and I cried. I think crying can be very cathartic. And as time went on, I found myself releasing the sadness and connecting to the love, which is my true self. So I had a miraculous shift yesterday. It was interesting. I mean, I don't know if anyone out there believes in signs. I don't know if signs are part of A Course in Miracles, but I personally kind of believe in signs. I believe in angels. I was feeling down, and then I looked on my phone, and a picture of my father popped up. And my dad died. His body died, I should say, about 3 years ago. And I do think he is around me in spirit form. I also think he's at a wiser state than when he was in his body. So his picture popped up on my phone, and it just calmed me, it just calmed me. And then as I was at a little job for a few hours, and as I continued to talk to people, I just felt better and better and better. And then I was really feeling connected to the love within my heart after my job was done, and I made a stop at a mini mart on the way home. And I was getting it's kind of interesting. I was getting like a little 5-hour energy drink because I like drinking 5-hour energy drinks when I work out in the morning, but I know it's probably not the best thing because it has like caffeine. So I bought the 5-hour energy drink, and I said to the cashier, yeah, I probably shouldn't be drinking this, but and the cashier says to me, you go, girl, just be yourself, he says to me. And I thought, wow, here I am judging myself, which is egoic. And the cashier is loving me, accepting me despite my imperfections. And that is of God. That's a miracle. I mean, because love is all that is real. And just to focus on it, it's always there, like throughout our day, it's our I guess, job as a Course in Miracles student to find the love because it's always there, right, Glorian?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love what you shared about signs. And Jesus tells us there are no coincidences, and everything is a projection or extension of ourself. So sure, I'm glad that your father came to you in that way and could offer you some comfort. And I know for myself, my parents both transitioned in 2020, 3 months apart. And there's times where I also get little signs and synchronicities and in dreams where they come to me, and their presence offers me some assurance and some comfort. So I think it's perfect. I love that you shared that. When you were talking about the meaning of love, the idea is we can't really understand. That's why Jesus tells us he can't teach us the meaning of love, because the ego really can't understand love with the thinking mind, which would be perception. So the ego, which is fear, fear can't know love because fear is the opposite of love. So what we're being asked to do here in this course is surrender our fear so we can move into the acceptance of love, which is an experience. And that's where Jesus tells us in the miracle principles, purification is necessary first. The ego does not do that purification. The higher mind comes in and erases the false thinking, which purifies us through our willingness to surrender to joy, to surrender to that joy of what we are, to be willing to say, I don't know what anything is for. Spirit, help me see this differently. And the willingness to accept the Christ mind as the healing mind, as the true perception, as the purification of what I am. And also, where you were speaking about every single person that's seemingly in a body is going to fall prey to temptation because the ego speaks first. And every single thought that comes in, which is ego, is a judgment, is a belief in duality, right, wrong, good, bad. This is what we're trying to get away from, this ego perceptual realm of third dimensional thinking, and move into the opportunity for the Christ mind, the fourth dimensional consciousness, to take the first place where we take the second place. So we take the second place, the ego, to gain the first, the acceptance of what I really am in truth. And I agree with you wholeheartedly that it's so important when these thoughts and feelings come up to look at them, because they're the gift offering us the opportunity to change our mind when they're showing us what we really think. We still think we're a body. We still think we're this ego. And all of these things, when we're honest, we process the feelings, we look at them, but we're gentle with ourselves, but vigilant for the kingdom. So I'll stay there and allow myself to feel this. What is this showing me? Holy Spirit, help me see what this is that's showing me. So I look, I wait, I make the space to have that interpretation made. Help me see it differently. And then I'm willing to accept, look, wait, and judge not. When we move into that non-judgment, we're accepting the Christ mind, we're accepting the Holy Spirit, that higher mind, which then imparts to us the true thoughts, the thoughts that we think with God. So everything is an opportunity for us to change our mind. Every single thought and feeling is a gift showing us that we're in that wrong mind, but the power of decision is our own, and we can make another choice. And that's the goal here. That's the beauty of this course, is that we can always change our mind about what we think we are. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Glorian. One of your incredibly intuitive insights there correlates very well with the lesson of the day. It's January 24th. So today is lesson 24. And the subject is, I do not perceive my own best interests. So we have to release what we think and allow God to guide our minds. That's very important. Very very challenging sometimes. I mean, especially for myself, because I know I like to control things. And I think there are many people like me in that sense. So it's challenging to release our own desires to the higher mind. But today, lesson 24 states, I do not perceive my own best interests. And then I'll just read the first paragraph because it's so good. Jesus writes here, in no situation that arises do you realize the outcome that would make you happy. Therefore, you have no guide to appropriate action and no way of judging the result. What you do is determined by your perception of the situation, and that perception is wrong. It is inevitable then that you will not serve your own best interest, yet they are your only goal in any situation which is correctly perceived. Otherwise, you will not recognize what they are. So it's really about releasing judgment. It's really about releasing control. There's an affirmation that works very well for me. When I say to myself, what if everything is just perfect right here, right now? It's like sometimes I think things should be different. I think that my life is supposed to be playing itself out in this particular way. And a lot of the times things are not going as I plan. But lesson 24 is very clear. I do not perceive my own best interest. So it's really important to accept everything in our life exactly as it is and give it over to God and allow him to direct us. It's challenging to do, but when we can just be with everything in our life, when we can just accept our life exactly as it is, it's very calming, because my happiness is not dependent upon my circumstances. My happiness is dependent upon me releasing my will with a small w to his will with a capital W. My happiness is dependent on recognizing who I truly am, remembering who I truly am. Because the thing is, A Course in Miracles tells us that we have everything that we could possibly desire within us. So there is nothing of the world that will complete us. So when we think things should be different, when we think we're unhappy because there's something in our life that's not going the way we think it should, we're incorrect because we have everything that we need. When I was listening to Course in Miracles on Audible today, um, it was saying that the only truly effective prayer is one for forgiveness, because when we can truly forgive ourselves, when we can truly connect with the innocence that we have within us, well, then that peace, love, joy, and happiness is going to radiate from us. It's God's will for me is perfect happiness, but I have everything that I need right here, right now. And to just live from that principle is so empowering. It is so very empowering. What do you think, Glorian?
Perfect. I love everything that you shared, and I think it's so true. I mean, it's challenging because we're tempted by the ego, but we're only tempted because we think we're something that we're not. And this can go back to what we were talking about last week when we were talking about, increasing the amount of time that we spend in joy in what we truly are in truth. And I think over the week I was thinking about this. It was coming up again and again that it's a choice that we make. It's not something that's thrust upon us, but the experience of living in joy is a choice that we make, saying, no, I'm not going to listen to this fearful voice of the ego, but I'm going to be willing to accept the reality of what I am and allow that presence to live and guide my life. I like that you brought up the lesson, and if it's all right, I have a few reflections that I took down today on today's lesson that I'd like to share. Okay, great. So I do not perceive my own best interest, lesson 24. We think we know what is best for us. We do not know what anything is for. Only omniscience can know all aspects of everything, not the separate ego mind. I have given everything all the meaning that it has for me. We take a look at humility, letting go of the ego, letting the ego go, and letting God lead the way. I will step back and let him lead the way. We recognize that what I think is good for me is based upon the past. It is duality, right, wrong, good, bad, an aspect of the evaluative false ego mind. We recognize that the world we see will not meet our perceived needs. We believe that we know what is best for us. This is all perception, duality, opinion. Opinion is always wrong. The ego is always wrong. We are not in our right mind and cannot perceive clearly. The ego distracts us from realizing there is only one problem and one answer. The only problem being separation. I think I am something that I'm not. The answer is in the acceptance of what I truly am, the Christ. We look at guilt and fear with willingness and in honesty. We recognize that all the projections are an attempt to protect the ego when it is only the ego I need protection from. So that's what had come through to me today on that lesson.
Very beautiful, Glorian. Very beautiful, very clear. Thank you for sharing. And I know we are doing a deep dive into the course, and we are reading starting in the preface. That's what we've done for the past couple of weeks. And I believe we are at what it is. Is that correct, Gloria?
Yes, it is.
Okay, well, I guess I'll read the first paragraph then, if you want to continue there for a little while and see what comes up. So, what it is states, as its title implies, the course is arranged throughout as a teaching device. It consists of 3 books, a 669-page text, a 488-page workbook for students, and a 92-page manual for teachers. The order in which students choose to use the books and the ways in which they study them depend on their particular needs and preferences. Do you have any thoughts, or do you want to read the next paragraph, Glorian?
Yeah, I think that this is great because basically it's what comes to us. I mean, for me, my own personal practice, I do the workbook lessons every day, every year. And, I read the text according to my guidance. But I sometimes in teaching, a lot of times what I've done is I have gone through the terms in the back and the teacher's manual to give an underlying foundation of what it is that we're attempting to achieve here. So it's an individualized curriculum, and I think it's important to mention that there's no right or wrong. It's just what your unfoldment needs, and it's revealed to you of how to work with that. But the second paragraph, the curriculum the course proposes is carefully conceived and is explained step by step at both the theoretical and practical levels. It emphasizes application rather than theory and experience rather than theology. It specifically states that a universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible but necessary. Although Christian in statement, the course deals with universal spiritual themes. It emphasizes that it is but one version of the universal curriculum. There are many others, this one differing from them only in form. They all lead to God in the end. And I think that's really important. We could start with that there. A universal theology is impossible, but a universal experience is not only possible, but necessary. And that's what we're attempting to get at, is the experience of oneness that we are. So we use the ego to think and to look at these things, but we can't think our way out of this course. It's an experience that takes us out of it into moving into the reality of what we are, which we can't know with the ego mind. There's no way we can know it. So where Jesus tells us knowledge will return when we have done our part, is the experience of oneness will return. Knowledge is not acquired learning, it's experience. And I like where it says, although Christian in statement, the Course deals with universal spiritual themes, because we can replace Christ with spirit, which is universal to all of us. What we all are is this infinite, invisible, universal spirit that is everywhere. And it's everywhere right now, available to us right now in this moment. It emphasizes that it is but one version of the universal curriculum. And that's important because there are many paths to God. And we're not saying that this is right and you're wrong. Ultimately, we want to get to the love that's beyond the concepts of anything. So if we look at all of the religions and we get behind the words, which are symbols, we're in that experience of oneness. So the universal curriculum is the acceptance of what I am in truth, what we all are, the love of God that has no opposition. And that's it. They all lead to God in the end because there's only God. God is the substance of all form, and God is love. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really poignant, clear paragraph. A Course in Miracles tells us that it is but one version of the universal curriculum. So this is one path to heaven, but it is not the only path to heaven. It does point out flaws in traditional religion. Because again, what I found is that religion tends to project man's insecurities and judgmental nature onto a false God. And when we see God as this being that will either accept us or condemn us at the end of our existence, that is just not true. A Course in Miracles says that God is incapable of judgment in any way. He is incapable of punishing us for sins or errors in any way. In fact, he doesn't even see the mistakes that we make. He sees the truth of who we are. So when we are coming from love, we will feel our connectedness with our creator. We will feel the truth of who we are. I mean, I love everything that the Course stands for. I mean, even when it is talking about the resurrection versus the crucifixion is not something that the Course wants us to focus upon. It's the resurrection that makes all the difference. And the resurrection is all about love. So I just love this paragraph. I love what A Course in Miracles talks about. And I think A Course in Miracles is also telling us that written by Jesus, Jesus was enlightened. but no more enlightened than any of us can get to. I mean, the Christ that was within Jesus is the same Christ that is within all of us, and there are also many other enlightened masters that have existed, such as Buddha and others. But when I can connect to the love within myself, I can remember who I truly am. Gloria.
I love everything you shared there, Susan, and that's the whole idea. The course is representing the truth, the gentleness, and this is the reversal of the upside down thinking, which the world sets up because it's based upon the ego, like you said. Organized religions, they're there to control and maintain. This is to keep the ego alive, to control people, not to allow them the freedom that the Course offers us, the liberation when we accept what we are. It's to keep the ego alive through sin and guilt and judgments and grievances so that it feels less than worthy. And as we know, our worthiness is established by God. But any establishment, this can not only go for organized religion, any establishment and set of rules and laws are to be looked at because basically they're set up by the ego. So they're fearful and they keep people fearful. And that's why this course has offered us an opportunity to look at the error, to reverse the upside down thinking of the world and accept what we truly are. These establishments are set up, the ego is set up so that we never ever learn the truth of what I am, so it can keep perpetuating itself. And the only thing that we ever need any protection from, as what came through this morning, is from that ego. The ego tries to protect itself through making us guilty. And the only thing we need protection from in truth is that false thought system that's binding us to hell and keeping us in fear. So thank you.
Yeah, the Course talks about the lion and the lamb laying together in perfect peace. So our strength is not of our ego. Our strength is of our innocence. The lamb represents innocence, and when we can truly embody the essence of innocence, we can feel our true power, which is not of us, it is of God who created us. And what's also really important to remember is that we did not create ourselves. Sometimes when we get scared, we tend to forget that. But we did not create ourselves. God created us in his image. We are an idea in the mind of God. And God is love. God is pure love, and pure love has no guilt. Pure love has no fear. Pure love is just completely innocent. That's why the only meaningful prayer is one for forgiveness, because when we can forgive ourselves, when we can forgive our brother, like forgiving our brother is really the same thing as forgiving ourselves. When we can forgive God's son, we can remember how pure and how holy and how innocent we truly are. And that is just such a beautiful thing. I mean, Course in Miracles does talk, because I listened to it today on Audible, about the lion and the lamb lying together. Because again, in our defenselessness, our safety lies. When we realize we have nothing to defend, we are safe. So it is I think A Course in Miracles, it's a training of the mind. It's a training of the mind to focus on the love and release the fear, release the guilt. A Course in Miracles is clear, is that there are two ways of thinking. One is love, one is fear, and anything that is not love falls under the umbrella of fear. But we always have a choice. We always have a choice. So here, the next paragraph, which I will read, states the text is largely theoretical and sets forth the concepts on which the course's thought system is based. Its ideas contain the foundation for the workbook's lessons. Without the practical application the workbook provides, the text would remain largely a series of abstractions, which would hardly suffice to bring about the thought reversal at which the Course aims. So, A Course in Miracles is stressing that we really need to live these concepts, understanding it. I think helps. It supports us on our journey towards heaven. But living the concepts of A Course in Miracles is what really has meaning. That's what's really impactful. It's like when I can just feel that energy. I mean, for me, it helps to understand. But when I can live that feeling, when I can just see the beauty in my brother or feel the beauty in myself and just connect with that energy of love. I mean, there's nothing like it. It's just such a beautiful, miraculous experience, and miracles are always available to us. I mean, A Course in Miracles says we don't have to depend upon our own readiness, but we need to trust in the readiness of Jesus, and he is available to us, whenever we ask for his help. Right, Gloria?
Absolutely. Absolutely. All we have to do is just get out of the way and accept it, as you started to say before, with the lion and the lamb. The ego laying down with its innocence, the ego no longer attacking its innocence, and letting go of defense, attack, defense, the shield, the sword, finally set aside, recognizing, as you said, defenselessness. In our defenselessness, we're accepting our worthiness as it's been established by God. So that's the point that we want to get to. I and the Father are one, the lion laying down with the lamb. I love it. And God, is creation, which is love. And once we recognize that we are extensions of the love of God, that's where we are surrendering unto our joy. That lying, laying down with the lamb is the surrender to joy, in that we're accepting what we are as love created us, and we're resting in that place. And we know joy, grace, peace, all of those things are synonymous. And they're experiences. They're not an aspect of the concepts. These are the experience of the love of God as we were created. So the ego mind can't even conceive of the magnitude of that experience. But the idea is, once we do set that ego, the fear aside, then we can move into, as you said, that experience where we're living these principles. We come to live them as allowing them to be prevalent in our lives, to be our experience, and we become the embodiment of it, for lack of better words, because we know that we're not even in bodies. We're not occupying bodies. This is experience of spirit that we're at. But what it says here, without the practical application of the workbook provides, the text would remain largely a series of abstractions, because we'd be thinking about them and saying, oh, well, that sounds nice, which would hardly suffice to bring about the thought reversal at which the course aims. So recognizing that everything is a projection of what I think, without the practical application of the workbook lessons, which brings to the unconscious to our consciousness the error and the upside down thinking, so that we can really work these lessons. We work them by thinking about them, then we rest and allow them to work through us. And that's the point that we want to get to, because otherwise things would just be concepts. So we need to work with it, practice, practice, practice. So we already are it, but we don't remember that. But we want that remembrance of what I am to come into greater realization. And that's what we're doing with working these lessons. The error, the upside down thinking, and then after, like the first, I think it's when the light has come. The second part of the workbook is the acceptance of what I am as spirit, and then living from that place. But without looking at what we're doing here with these first 50 to 60 lessons, we're not able to just jump from that to that. It's a process, the atonement process, which is the undoing of fear to accept the atonement, which is the at-one-ment. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Gloria. And then the next paragraph here. Do you want to read? Is it your turn to read, Gloria?
Oh, it doesn't matter. You could read it if you'd like. Read.
You could, or okay, I think I read the last one. You can read this one
Okay,
if you'd like.
sure. And let's see. The workbook includes 365 lessons, one for each day of the year. It is not necessary, however, to do the lessons at that tempo. And one might want to remain with a particularly appealing lesson for more than one day. The instructions urge only that not more than one lesson a day should be attempted. The practical nature of the workbook is underscored by the introductions to its lessons, which emphasizes experience through application rather than a prior commitment to a spiritual goal. So that's what we were talking about. We want to move into the experience by applying and practicing the lessons. And I like the gentleness with which it's like, well, okay, just don't do more than one a day, but take your time in doing it. And, because even from here, it's talking about following this, your inner guidance on what to do and how, what works for you, which brings us about the individualized unfoldment that we each have. Not everything is perfect for everyone, but he's just asking us not to overwhelm ourselves with too much. I know for myself, there's been particular lessons and that I would work with for, like, say, 6 months. I mean, my grievances hide the light of the world in me. If we take responsibility and we recognize that these are my grievances I'm placing out there, and all I have to do is take responsibility for that and be willing to remove those blocks to love's presence, our ideas of sin, guilt, judgments, grievances that we're projecting out there on on the world of that's really there, which is the grace of God. That's all there is. So it's our self-imposed limiting ideas that we're projecting on the blessing of everything that's impeding us from experiencing that love of God that we are, that I am. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good lesson there. My grievances hide the light of the world in me, and that brings to mind, would you rather be right or happy? Our ego loves validation for our complaints. Again, I had a trigger at the gym, and my ego really wants validation for my complaints. The ego really, really wants that, but then I know from a higher perspective, from a Course in Miracles perspective, even if I can validate my grievances and I find out that I'm right about this other person and this other person is wrong, and I have every right to be angry about what happened. Again, that's all of the ego. It's all of the ego. I guess for me, it is important to, I guess, identify the piece of darkness that the trigger is bringing to the light, because by identifying the darkness, by identifying the pain point, by identifying the wound, that's how the healing can occur. So it's not about really getting validated for our grievances, but it is about allowing the pain point that got triggered to surface so that healing can occur. Zoma.
I was just, earlier I had mentioned that I was having had been having an issue with someone, and the first thing what I mentioned was that it was important for me to be willing to see it differently. And as I'm willing to see it differently, had to know that she wasn't triggering anything. I was not triggered by what she was doing. I was not. No. I was letting myself be triggered, because remember, it's about me. It's not about the other person. And I had to keep seeing that. I had to be willing to see it differently. I had to keep reminding myself that I want to see this differently, because I wasn't feeling good. I wasn't feeling good because I wasn't thinking good, and in bad English. I wasn't thinking the kind of thoughts that brought oneness. I kept thinking, important first for me to recognize that I was letting myself be triggered by. And then the course, as we were saying, as far as identifying, the course reminds us that we're not asked to, we have to look at it, but we also have to be willing to let it go. I can look at it, but I don't want to keep it. That's what the course says. Nothing that we can't see, but something that we just not willing to keep. So I need to look. I need to see, what it is about me, because it's not them. It's not. This is a course in mind training, my mind. It's not a course in training someone else's mind. It's not a course in training the way somebody else does or doesn't do things. And I love that the workbook mentions that it's about application. I have to be willing to apply it. I can't just, for me, I can't, saying I want to see it differently is one thing. And of course talks about that. Saying I want the peace of God is one thing. But to really want it, what am I willing to do? Am I willing to, at the very least, recognize that only my allegiance to the ego makes it real? There's no such thing as, quote, quote, my ego. There's no such thing. There's no such thing. It's the way I choose to think. It's a decision the course teaches. It's just a decision. There's no such thing as my ego. It would be more, I think, for me anyway, more beneficial to say my Holy Spirit than to say my ego, because I'm giving the ego attention. I'm paying attention. I had to stop paying attention. I had to be willing to see it differently, not see all of it. I had to be willing to see her differently. I had to realize that she is what I am. Whatever was being triggered, it's not something that she was doing. It's something in me. I'm complete.
So, thank you, Zulma. Thank you so much. I love your shares. On that note, I have to go because I have to be somewhere very soon. It's about 1:50. Should I return the microphone to Lynn, Glorian? Are you complete? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
So,
Thank you.
okay. Well, thank you, my beautiful good friend Glorian and soul sister. Thank you for your share, Zulma. And as A Course in Miracles says, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. The only thing that's real is the love. And I love you all. And I will now return the microphone to Lynn.
Thank you so much, Susan, Michelle. Thank you, Gloria, and thank you, Zelma, and thank you everyone who's been with us. It's a great Friday, and